Shabbat Shalom. Turn this off. We have one mic. So good to be with all of you this evening for our Scholar in Residence Weekend with Rabbi Marla Feldman, as well as Kol Zimra. We are so happy that you're here bringing us even more music. We are going to begin our service this evening on page 142, singing Shalom Aleichem. I'd like to call up Janine Hutner to offer us some announcements from the congregation.
Shabbat Shalom. I'm Janine, representing the Board of Trustees, and I would like to welcome you to the temple this evening. Want to lift up your spirits? Please join Cantor Rower and Rabbi Delson for a Shabbat song session tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. All ages are welcome. Tomorrow also concludes our special Scholar in Residence Weekend with Rabbi Marla Feldman. The brunch and learn will begin at 11 a.m. Thanksgiving mitzvah meal orders were due today by 4 p.m. However, you may email them by 5 p.m. on Sunday. Pickup and delivery is Wednesday, November 27th at 11:45 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. The temple offices will be closed by 1 p.m. for the Thanksgiving holiday. Temple Shomer Imanim presents a kitchen shower and afternoon tea Sunday, December 8th at 11:30 a.m. Be sure to RSVP by Tuesday, December 3rd. Also, on December 8th, it's a busy day, enjoy Tubas at the Temple, featuring the BGSU Tuba Euphonium Studio, led by David Saltzman. Part 2 of the BGSU concert series, which will begin at 3 p.m. Shabbat Shalom.
We are going to turn now in our prayer books to page 120 for our candle blessing. And at this time, I'd like to call up Rolf Hess and his family to light the Shabbat candles, followed by a special birthday blessing in honor of his 90th birthday.
Okay, we're getting this together. Here we go. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light. Oops. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu b'hadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel
In honor of your 90th birthday, I found, I'll start again. In honor of your 90th birthday, for those who are watching on our live stream now, you can hear me. I looked for a verse in the 90th Psalm. There are 150 Psalms, and so I looked at Psalm 90 to see if I can find some wisdom for you who has made it through this many years on earth, providing for your family, being a part of our community, and doing wonderful things that you have done throughout your life. And I came upon verse 12 of Psalm 90, which says, "So teach us to number our days that we may get a heart of wisdom." And on this occasion of your birthday, I hope that you have reached this point, that you recognize that you do have a heart of wisdom and that you have so much to offer your family, your friends, and all of us. Mazel tov on this occasion. Cantor and I would like to offer you our oldest blessing in front of the ark, and I would like to invite the congregation to please rise. Stand here. Oh, right there. You're perfect.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha.
May God bless you and keep you.
Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yechuneka.
May God's face shine upon you and be gracious to you.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yaseim lecha shalom.
May God's presence always be with you and bring you peace. Amen. Amen.
Let's wish Rolf a big mazel tov. 1, 2, 3. Mazel tov! Happy birthday.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Go back to your seat. You may all be seated. We are going to turn now to page 648 for one of our Shabbat Psalms, singing Shir Hadash.
Shir
Page 138 will join together in Lecha Dodi. We will be singing together verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. And as is our custom and that of the ancient Kabbalists, we rise in verse 9 and face the doorway. Page 144, Chatzi Kaddish.
Yitkada ve'yikada shemei rabba ve'almad yivarach hirutei ve'yamlich malchutei b'chayei chonu v'yomei chon uv'chayei decho beit Yisrael bagala uv'izman karim ve'imeru amen. Yehei shemei rabba mevorach le'alam u'lamei amaya yiparach ve'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yinaseh ve'yitadar v'yitalel שמדקותשה בריחו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תאמירן בעלמה, ואימרו Amen.
The Baruch Hu is on page 146. Please rise.
Baruch Hu et Adonai, HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Page 148, we have Ahavat Olam, the prayer that comes directly before the Shema.
Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael,
We read together at the bottom of page 151. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us. The more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Oheb Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto le'olam.
Please be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Next prayer is Hashkivenu, a prayer for protection. The first time that this prayer appeared was from a prayer book called Seder Rav Amram, going all the way back to 860 CE. So protection and nighttime go hand in hand, and it's something that our people have been praying for a very long time. The words to this version of our prayer this evening are on page 677.
Oh, guide my steps and help me find my way. I need your shelter now. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps and help me make
Song for Shabbat, V'Shamru, is on page 162. Beginning on page 164, we have the Amidah. Just a reminder that we are using the addition on page 168 for the winter. The Hebrew words are Mashiv Haruach Umurid Hagasham, both of which we have had this week, wind and rain. Please rise for the Amidah.
Adonai Sefatai Tiftach Ufi Agite Hilatecha Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu V'Elohei Avotenu V'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak V'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel V'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor V'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'Konei HaKol V'Zocher Chasevot V'Imahot U'Mevi Ge'ula Livnei V'neihem Le'man Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen Baruch Atah Adonai Magin Avraham Bezrat Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechayei HaKol Atah Rab Lehoshia Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGashem Mechalkel Chayim Bechesed Mechayei HaKol Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim Verofei Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayim Emunato Lishenei Afar Micha Mocha Ba'al Gevurot Umido Melach Melech Memit Umechaya Umatzmiach Yeshua B'ne'eman Atah L'Hachayot HaKol Baruch Atah Adonai Mechayei HaKol Atah Kadosh V'Shimcha Kadosh U'Kadoshim B'chol Yom Yahalalucha Selah Baruch Atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh.
Please be seated. Turn now to page 177 for our Modim, or Hoda'ah prayer, our prayer of thanksgiving. Every single day we have prayers for Thanksgiving, and in this week leading up to our secular holiday of Thanksgiving, it is my hope that we truly contemplate all for that which we are grateful for. Let's join together in the English at the top of page 177. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more, we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, Hatov Shimcha Ulacha La'el Lehodot. Turn back now to page 174 for the prayer asking God to accept our prayers, Ritzeh. Page 178. Grant abundant peace to Israel, your people, forever, for you are the sovereign God of all peace. May it be pleasing to you to bless your people Israel in every season and moment with your peace. Join together with Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim
ומברך את עמו ישראל בשלום.
Page 371, we have the words to the Mishaberach, our prayer for healing. This week in our community, we are praying for the healing of Charlie Bauer, Brian Bucky, Bruce S. Feldman, Mark Fine, Michael Gordon, Larry Markwood, Don Painter, and Sarah Taub. If you are thinking of someone in your life who is in need of healing and you'd like to share their name aloud, I would encourage you to do so. Join together with the Mishaberach. May they each find a sense of wholeness and healing very soon. We'll continue with our own personal prayer for a few moments. We are delighted this evening to have Rabbi Marla Feldman with us. She is the author of the recently published book of feminist midrash called Biblical Women Speak, Hearing Their Voices Through New and Ancient Midrash. Rabbi Feldman is both a rabbi and a lawyer. She is the Executive Director Emerita of the Women of Reform Judaism and currently serves as counsel with the law firm Peer, Gann, Giesler, LLP, specializing in clergy contracts. Previously, Rabbi Feldman was the director of the Commission on Social Action of Reform Judaism and the director of development of the Union of Reform Judaism. And she served the Jewish Community Relations Councils in both Detroit and in Delaware. She was ordained in 1985 at the Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion, where she received her Master in the Art of Hebrew Letters in 1983. She received a JD from the University of Florida in 1993 and a BA in Jewish Studies from the University of Pennsylvania. In addition to her book, Biblical Women Speak, she contributed several chapters in several publications, including the Social Justice Torah Commentary, Moral Resistance and Spiritual Authority, and The Sacred Calling, 4 decades of women in the rabbinate. She has written several reform movement action manuals, and her articles and op-eds have appeared in Jewish publications and newspapers nationwide. And Marla Feldman grew up here at Temple Shomer Emunim in Sylvania, Toledo, Ohio, and then Sylvania. And we are delighted that she is here tonight, along with her sister and brother-in-law as well. Welcome.
Can you hear me? Good. Shabbat Shalom. I need to rewrite that bio because it sounds like I can't keep a job. But I've been doing lots of things. Thank you, Rabbi Cantor, Lynn, and everyone who had a role in my being here on this Shabbat. It's really a joy to be back in my old stomping grounds in my home congregation where I celebrated so many life cycle ceremonies from consecration to confirmation and weddings, B'nai Mitzvah celebrations. And it was here that I learned to love Judaism. And I just have to give a shout out. Several of my former teachers from growing up are here. You know who you are, so thank you for inspiring me to become the Jewish leader that I am today. So it was here that I found those mentors and role models that inspired me to become a rabbi. And I owe such a debt of gratitude to everyone in this congregation for making that possible. This is a perfect Shabbat to begin what will be your year-long celebration, marking the 50th anniversary of the ordination of the first woman cantor, Barbara Ostfeld. It's a perfect weekend because this Shabbat, Chaye Sarah, is all about women. The Parsha begins with Abraham mourning his wife Sarah and ensuring a proper burial site for her, thus establishing a foothold in the land of Canaan. Having lost his own beloved wife, Abraham's next immediate task is to find a wife for his son Isaac. And so he sends his servant on a journey that leads him to Rebekah. Just as Sarah had left her home to travel with Abraham to a foreign land, Rebekah bravely leaves her home to embark on a future with Isaac, whom she had never even met before. Shortly after, Isaac and Rebekah wed and fall in love in that order. Abraham, too, seeks the comfort of yet another wife named Keturah. I'm guessing that many of you never heard of Keturah. We don't count her among our matriarchs, and yet she and Abraham would have been married over 35 years. She bore Abraham 6 sons, each of whom became the head of a great clan, such as the Midianites. Little is known about Keturah from the biblical text. So in order for us to discover who she was, we need to be creative and fill in the gaps of the biblical text through midrash, the ancient literary art of biblical interpretation and embellishment. As you heard from the rabbi tomorrow morning, I'll be speaking a bit about my book, Biblical Women Speak, which is specifically about Midrash and how Midrash helps us uncover these stories of biblical women and helps us find relevance and meaning from their lives. So this parasha features Sarah and Rebecca and the forgotten Keturah. In the coming weeks, we'll read about other biblical women, Rachel and Leah, their handmaids Bilhah and Zilpah, and in the coming months, a little bit later, we'll hear about the women of the Exodus, Yocheved, who was Moses' mother, his sister Miriam, the Egyptian midwives, and Pharaoh's daughter, all of whom conspire to save Moses despite Pharaoh's decree. Later, for those of you who attend Torah study in the summer, we'll learn about Zelophehad's daughters, who during the trek in the wilderness argued for and won inheritance rights for women, which previously had been unheard of. All of these biblical women were travelers and adventurers, just like the patriarchs. They faced famine, physical threats, warfare, plagues, and numerous trials, bearing their children along the road and raising them up despite all of their hardships. With courage and fortitude, they established our ancestral lineage and gave birth to the Jewish people. There's one more adventurous woman I feel the need to mention on this Shabbat, and that's my grandmother, Sophie, whose Hebrew name was Chaya Sarah, which is the same as our Torah portion, Chaye Sarah, because this is the anniversary of her birth week, which was the name of the parsha when she was born. Sophie was born in a Ukrainian shtetl, and like so many of our family stories, after a series of pogroms, her family packed up and began the journey to the Golden Land. Upon arriving at Ellis Island, the family was quarantined, someone was ill in the family, and they remained there for several weeks before being allowed into the country. Ever the optimist, Sophie remembered that perilous journey as a great adventure. Her most vivid memory was of a guard who gave her a piece of chocolate. I think it was her first piece of chocolate. Despite terrifying circumstances, the arduous journey in steerage, weeks in Ellis Island detention, a single kind guard and a piece of chocolate, that was what America was all about for her. Despite so many struggles in her life, the loss of her parents, poverty, bankruptcy, the death of her husband, America remained for her the land of opportunity. Like those other matriarchs that we read about in the Torah, no matter what trials she faced, Sophie persevered with hope and with the promise of a future for her clan. Sadly, in post-biblical Jewish history, not enough has been preserved of women's stories like Sophie's. Of course, throughout Jewish history, there were notable women. And yet, how many of us learned in religious school about Queen Shlom Tzion, who ruled Judea in the 1st century BCE? Or how many of us heard about the Talmud scholar Bruria? Or Beatriz de Luna, who is also known as Doña Gracia Mendez, who during the Middle Ages fled the Portuguese Inquisition, and she became the greatest patron and savior of fugitive conversos, the secret Jews. How many of us growing up learned about the story of Rebecca Gratz, the 19th century philanthropist who established orphanages and social service networks for women and children? How many of us know the story of the first woman ordained as a rabbi, Regina Jonas, who was ordained in Germany in 1935. Sadly, she was murdered by the Nazis in Auschwitz in 1944. And what about all those other unnamed women, women who persevered side by side with the rabbis of the Talmud, the medieval commentators, the great thinkers and philosophers of the Enlightenment, women whose names we will never know? Sadly, for much of Jewish history, women's voices and leadership were suppressed, except for those few notable women like those that I mentioned. The concept of kol isha, the voice of women, or more accurately, the prohibition against hearing the voice of women, that concept developed over time. and by the 19th century had become embedded in Jewish law. The idea that women's voices are inherently evil, that idea still prevails in some Jewish sectors, raising fears that the sound of women speaking, or God forbid, singing, would lead men astray, distract them from prayer, and lead to their ruin. Thus, women were relegated to the other side of the mechitza, if they were permitted inside the halls of prayer at all. Raising their voices in the public sphere was prohibited. This concept of kol isha is the basis of rulings even today by the Israeli rabbinate that would bar women of the wall from praying out loud, much less singing, at the Kotel, the Western Wall. The prohibition of kol isha prevented women from leading prayer, reading Torah, or sitting on the bima for so much of Jewish history. This was the status of women in the Jewish world from which the Reform movement emerged in the late 1800s. Despite boldly proclaiming itself to be egalitarian, it would still be another 50 years before the formation of Women of Reform Judaism, WRJ. Some of you may know it by its former name, the National Federation of Temple Sisterhoods, or NFTS. That organization, 50 years after the movement was created, was established specifically to give women a voice within the Reform movement. Within a few short years of its creation, which was in 1913, Reform women had garnered a network of hundreds of women's groups, sisterhoods like you have in this congregation, throughout the country. At the time when they were established, the rabbis and the board members who were leading the Reform movement, the men who held the keys to leadership of congregational life, they presumed that the women would busy themselves with discussion groups, with teaching religious school, preparing for the oneg, raising money for the male rabbinical students at the Hebrew Union College, HUC in Cincinnati. Well, of course, the women did all of those things. But that's not all they did. In fact, they turned the Jewish world upside down. Many of the founding mothers of WRJ were suffragists. They had found their voice through community organizing and the fight for women's right to vote. And they used those skills to speak out about matters of justice and equality from the moment WRJ was established. It was not long before the sisterhood women moved beyond those expectations of the men who ran the movement to use their collective power to break down barriers to women's full engagement in Jewish life. And here's a little bit of your own congregational trivia that I bet you don't know. How many of you know that Pauline Perlmutter Steinem, the grandmother of feminist icon Gloria Steinem, was a former president of the sisterhood of this congregation? Paulina was a Polish immigrant. She moved to Toledo with her American husband, and she was an activist just like her granddaughter. Their youngest son, Leo, was Gloria Steinem's father. Paulina was one of those women who, before she was the sisterhood president, was a suffragist. She was the president of the Ohio Women's Suffrage League. According to scholar Carol Balin, who wrote about Pauline Steinem, Carol Balin wrote, "When people asserted that women could not succeed in certain fields, Pauline replied, 'No man knows what women would do if she were free to develop the powers latent within her, nor does she herself know yet.'" So you've got a long legacy in this congregation of powerful women. As expected, in the early years, the women's groups created and ran religious schools. They arranged the holiday celebrations. They beautified the congregation with flowers. I don't see flowers, but they're there. They're there. And of course, they ran the kitchen. I still remember the sisterhood women of my youth taking turns serving tea at the oneg. Like Jewish women throughout history, they were there, but often they were in the background. They provided important supportive roles, but often they remained nameless, and they didn't really have a say in the sacred, the religious life of the community. Nonetheless, the Sisterhood women proved very good at organizing and fundraising. They established NIFTY, which is the Reform Movement's youth program. They established the first Reform Movement camp, which is Osrui, which still operates in Wisconsin. They formed the Reform Movement's college outreach program. Since it was created, WRJ Women provided financial support not only for rabbinical students, for which I am personally very grateful. They also established the actual infrastructure of the Reform movement. They built the dormitory for the students at Hebrew Union College in Cincinnati. They purchased the land for the Reform movement's headquarters in New York. In Israel, the Sisterhood women funded the conference center of the Reform movement's international headquarters in Jerusalem. And they founded numerous congregations in Israel, as well as the two Reform kibbutzim in Israel, Yahel and Lotan. We even purchased a cow for Kibbutz Lotan's dairy, but I have to admit, with all of my visits to Kibbutz Lotan, I have yet to see the cow with WRJ's branded on its tuchus. So I'm still waiting to see that cow that WRJ donated to Kibbutz Lotan. All in, WRJ women continue to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars every year to train professional leaders, to develop new programs, and to support the Reform movement's infrastructure. In addition to all the work sisterhoods like the sisterhood of this congregation does in their local communities to support religious schools and youth programs, camp scholarships, and so much more. Like the suffragist founders of WRJ, Reformed Jewish women used their collective power in the pursuit of social justice as well as building the movement. After winning the battle for the vote, they turned their attention to issues of peace and justice. In the 1930s, the organization founded the Jewish Braille Institute. In the 1940s, the movement, the WRJ leaders established the network of Jewish and women's NGOs, non-governmental organizations, at the United Nations. And in fact, WRJ still has representatives working in that network at the UN today. In the 1960s and 70s, Reform women demonstrated for civil rights. And uniquely, WRJ women spoke out on behalf of LGBTQ rights. And in fact, WRJ was the first religious organization in America to do that, long before other religious organizations and even others within the Reform movement spoke out in that way. So of course today, Reformed Jewish women remain at the forefront of advocacy on behalf of women, continuing the struggle for equality and equal pay, for women's health, and sadly, we continue to fight for access to birth control and safe abortions, battles that many of us thought had been won long ago. And yet, despite all of those successes and all of the things that they organized on behalf of the movement, they wanted more. The sisterhood women wanted to stand equally, side by side, with the men in the ritual and spiritual life of the community. And so the mission of WRJ moved beyond religious schools and fundraising to leadership development and religious education for women and girls. When this congregation was established some 150 years ago, women had no role in creating liturgy or leading worship. They could print cookbooks, but not prayer books. They could sing in choirs, at least in some communities, but they couldn't lead worship. It was sisterhood women that changed all of that from one community to the next. Over time, they shattered the glass mechitza to place women fully in the center of the religious life of the community. It was those lay women, the sisterhood women, that created the cultural change that was necessary to lead to a path of women's professional leadership in the Jewish community, leading to women's ordination. The relentless determination of sisterhood women unlocked the doors to professional Jewish leadership for me, Rabbi Delson, Cantor Rohr, Cantor Ostfeld, who you will meet later in the year, and all of our female colleagues. And by the way, led to Rabbi Delson's role in leading the Women's Rabbinic Network, and she is now, I hope you know, co-president of that organization, which is a continuation of this legacy of women's leadership. And so to any of you here tonight who are sisterhood women, I'd like to thank you on behalf of all of us for making it possible for us to be here. So these are just a few snippets about the role of women in Jewish history and Reformed Jewish women in particular. We have an inspiring past, and yet the work is not done. No doubt there will be new battles to be fought on behalf of women's rights. There certainly will be glass ceilings that have yet to be shattered. Whatever those challenges are or will be, I know that collectively we'll face them head on. And I know that Jewish women will continue to gather for sisterhood, for spirituality, and for social justice. We will continue to cultivate leaders to support our youth, to speak up for those who have no voice, and we will continue to demand our rightful place in Jewish life. We may not always do it with white serving gloves like our foremothers, but we will do all of that nonetheless, with the same courage and the same fortitude as Sarah and Rebecca and Keturah and Sophie and Rabbi Jonas and Cantor Ostfeld and all of the women who came before us. And so once again, I want to thank all of you here tonight who are leaders of Congregation Shomer Emunim for giving me and so many others a sturdy foundation of faith and pride in our Jewish identity, for all you do to raise up the next generation of leaders who will follow us. May you continue to go from strength to strength. Ken Yehi Ratzon.
We can give an applause. That's okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for that walk through history and just an incredible reminder of how far we've come in just 100 years, 150 years, however we want to look at it. And we are so looking forward to your class tomorrow morning, our brunch and learn, and just delighted that you're here. Thank you so much. We are going to return back to our prayer books for Aleinu, page 586. Please rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Page 591.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד ושמו אחד ושמו
Please be seated. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. This week we are remembering those whose families are in the period of Shloshim: Ronald Aaron, Betty Benjamin, Julia Casey, Sandy Eisenberg, Sandra Liebenthal Whitman, Spencer Stone, and Cecil Uniton. We're also remembering those for whose yahrzeits occur this week: Bertha Edelstein, Milton Adler, Dorothy C. Baer, Phyllis E. Baum, Mildred R. Blackstone, David R. Brown, Mort B. Cohn, Joe Coughlin, Samuel Kronstein, Peggy Damrauer, Marjorie Emmerman, Miriam Freeling, Jack L. Friedlander, Samuel Grossman, Ida Herman, Joan Hiller, Mary Frances Klein, Herbert J. Kleinman, Rosabelle M. Clivens, Maxine Wolfenstein, Julian M. Kobacker, Emmanuel Levinson, Robert Levy, Dorothy Little, Rena Mann, Harry Myers, Mary Neufeld, Rose Reifman, Charlotte June Rosen, Alan Rosen, R. William Rosenthal Jr., Leo Rothschild, James Gary Shopneck, Richard Silverman, Bessie H. Starsky, James L. Thal, Sammy Thau, and Dorothy Wagner. If you're remembering someone who has not yet been listed, I encourage you to share their name with the congregation. The words to the Mourner's Kaddish are on page 598. Please rise. Yitgadal v'yekadash shemei rabbah be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala l'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mivorach le'olam u'amei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh V'yatadar, v'yataleh, v'yatalal, shemed kudusha b'rechu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran v'alma v'imru, amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for a blessing. You may be seated. Our closing song this evening is on page 625, Adon Olam.
Shemoni Ra,
you, Cole Zimra. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Please join us in the hallway for Kiddush and Motzi, followed by dinner. Shabbat Shalom.
Where would you like these?